Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Words of Heart. In today's episode, we have the privilege of speaking with Wilfredo Artero. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. You have a really
It's cool.
interesting
It's
name.
cool.
Thank you for joining me today, Will.
It's pleasure's mine. Pleasure's always mine.
Awesome. So, Will, I hope I can call you Will. You have a really long
Nah,
name.
it's that's yeah. It's they either call me Will or Wise. It's fine.
Okay. So Will, if you could tell my audience a bit about yourself, that would be great.
Well, I am the host of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I've been podcasting for a little bit, probably about a year right now. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, but now I reside in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. Um, let's see. I was widowed at 31. Spent some years battling my own demons and getting back to where I'm at now. So
Interesting. So I know you mentioned battling demons, and we all have our own fair share of demons and struggles. Do you mind elaborating a bit on those demons? If you're comfortable, that is.
oh no, that's part of my story. Like I said, I lost my first wife at the age of 31, and she was my best friend, and I kind of drank away a few years after that, like just abusing alcohol and not really wanting to live, and just I was down a dark path. It was like I had lost part of myself when I lost her. So it was just me being self-destructive, not wanting to be here anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you didn't take that dark path and that you are still here. Considering your demons and your own emotional vulnerability in regards to becoming a widow, do you think that played a factor into starting your podcast in any way?
If might have, if it's because prior to that to that I was really getting into self development, self improvement, and when I lost her, I kind of lost that part of me because she was the one who pushed me towards all that. And when I got with my wife that I'm with now, she brought that back into my life. And by me really getting back into the self development and truly finding who I was again, it 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 played a big part in the person that I am now.
Interesting. Obviously this pandemic season has brought a lot of negativity throughout this season. And my heart goes out to everyone that's been affected by it. How have you been affected by the pandemic?
I've lost a really real close friend of mine. I I'm talking about I've known this man. I knew him all my life, like since I was in diapers, and he was one of my biggest supporters. Like when he found out I started podcasting, he was one of the people that I would talk to, reach out to, and get feedback from him. And he, like I said, he was one of my biggest supporters. He was one of the guys. Hey guy, his thing was he always said, "Hey guy," and he would be like, "Hey guy, man, you need to do this, you need to do that. Next year, I want to hear this." And that was like that was big for me because he's someone who listens to podcasts regularly, and for him to reach to support me and be like, "Hey, you're good. Continue to do what you're doing." That was a big boost for me. So when I lost him, it was like, oh, that's like, this is one of my biggest supporters. Now what? Um, but knowing him, he would be like, "Yo, what do you mean now? What? You keep doing what you're doing and grinding. That's it." And that's just him. That's just the way he was. It was like he 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 was one of the kindest people that you would ever meet. Like I don't know anyone who had any kind of beef with him. I don't recall ever growing up that anyone had a problem with him. And that's just the way that that's just the person he was.
Aw. Well, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend. I can't imagine how unfortunate that was, because of things being so limited and closed off, and you can't exactly get the right closure that you desire in some cases because of the healthy measures intact. Um, so your name of your podcast is Stuck in the Mind. Is that the right term?
Stuck in my mind, yes.
Stuck in my
Because
mind.
for so very long, I was stuck in my mind. I was my biggest obstacle. Me, me putting the self doubt in myself by saying, "Oh, dude, you sound horrible," or "Who the hell would want to listen to you?" Or just coming up with so many different excuses to why I shouldn't start the podcast. And when I just decided just to kick the door down and just like not care about being afraid anymore, things just started like it's like a snowball effect. Things just started rolling down the hill and growing and growing and growing. So now it's like I'm like I don't understand why I was so stuck in my head not wanting to do this podcast because now it's like I can't stop. I just can't stop recording. It's like I'm recording every other day.
Well, I can definitely understand the recording mentality. I had no idea I would be so immersed into podcasting as I have been. It seemed like just a silly little hobby to do, because I had a lot of availability, as a relation in regards to the pandemic. I had the privilege of doing schooling at online, so I didn't have to go to any physical buildings, fortunately. But I still had a lot of availability, and I was tired of watching Netflix. I think I watched the whole library of Netflix. I did not want to turn into a TikTok junkie, which I did turn into one. I thought I was like a world class dancer when I had no sense of rhythm whatsoever. And I thought perhaps there should be a better use of my time somehow. And just to give you a little further insight into me a bit, um, what kind of kickstarted my podcasting journey in a way, a year ago, when the pandemic started, which would be like January, in my opinion, is when it really got worse. I got diagnosed with diabetes. Um, that was a really drastic health change that I didn't foresee happening. I'm pretty sure anybody diagnosed with any health condition during this pandemic was absolutely terrified, just as I was. But I saw what happened to me, as a blessing in disguise, because if I hadn't been diagnosed when I was, I could have died. I was literally on the brink of death and could have died at any given moment. That's the sad, hard, cold reality to my condition, because at the time there was no clear answer as to what was happening to me. It was really devastating to my family. And they also still, even though there was an answer to what was going on, they still took this particular health diagnosis not easily, considering my upbringing and all the difficulties I had growing up health wise. But I saw it as a positive thing because I had another chance to live my life. I got still writing my story. I don't have to die, which still still hard to process in my brain sometimes, but that is the truth. So I saw it as God's way of giving my life more purpose. And from there, he kind of put this idea in my head to be a warrior for change. But I wasn't exactly sure how he wanted me to do that. The only vocalization I've ever done was through spoken word videos. Um, and I kind of started that a little like I got diagnosed in January. Um, I started doing spoken word videos that September. So I guess in a way he already had the idea of podcasting in my head a bit before I even had it in my head. I wasn't exactly sure how he wanted me to do that. And it wasn't until I listened to another podcast through my this young adult ministry here at in Florida that I'm a part of. They launched a podcast and they're always saying, "Hey Dion, what you say is encouraging and inspiring." Um, and it was so weird and mind blowing for them to tell me this because our only relationship was really through Zoom. I didn't have the privilege of being active because of life and school and other circumstances beyond my control. So they were just getting to know me really through a computer screen. So the fact that they're saying I'm inspiring when they haven't even met me in person, it's just literally a screen that's this small. Like, how can what I say actually matter? But apparently it did. So I took to heart to what they said and what God's been calling me to do. And that summer, I asked God, use me however you want to use me. That was in June. And then in August is when I launched my podcast. So that was basically his answer to helping others during this unfortunate season we're in. So I launched it in August. It seemed like a nice, fun idea to step away from TikTok and all that good stuff. Initially, I saw it as just being me, but I really got into it and then launched the second season in January. And it's pretty much been nothing but awesome, inspirational stories from there. People having the courage and the vulnerability to want to share their stories on my particular platform is truly heartwarming to me because I do believe that each of us has a story that does have the power to help somebody else. Um, so that's just a nice, somewhat overview to my podcasting journey. And just like you, I'll be close to being a year into this as well. So,
Yeah, but with me, I had wanted to start my journey in 2019. I
uh,
purchased a I purchased no I purchased a podcast studio for $160 on Amazon. It was a Behringer studio. It had comes with a mic, a mixer, headphones, and this adapter that plugged into my laptop. And that's what I started with. And I had the equipment sitting around because I was going to do a sports podcast with a friend of mine from work, and him and his wife had just had a newborn, so he couldn't do it anymore because newborns are time consuming. You have to spend time with your baby and stuff. So fast forward to March of 2020, I get furloughed from my job. I'm out of work. I'm home all the time playing PlayStation and doing whatever to do list the wife has for me. And I was like, no, I need to do something. So I'm just sitting here one day talking to my nephew on the phone when I decide I'm gonna hit record, and I'm holding the phone to the mic. I don't have none of the setup that I have now because the setup I have now is really nice. I invested heavily in myself, but I'm holding the phone to the mic so you could hear him on the mic, and we're just talking for like 5 minutes, just chopping it up. And he was like, "Yo, don't release that." I'm like, "Why not?" He says, "Because I want us. We need to practice more, and we want." I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna release that because I want people to see the growth. I want them to see this is how we started with me holding the phone and you talking to the phone. And like I said, I didn't have any of the setups that I have now. So we did that. We released it. Um, People tuned in, listened. It was just 5 minutes of me saying what's up and what we was planning on doing. And then the next episode was 7 minutes. Then the next one after that went up to like 12 minutes. Then the next one after that went up to like 20 minutes. So slowly but surely, I was going up in minutes, and it was just funny because The first few episodes, it was more about me ranting about work and the nonsense that was going on with the politics and all the bullshit. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse.
No,
And,
no worries.
and it was just, I felt like there was something else missing. There was something missing. And so when I switched to the format that I'm doing now, where I'm having guests on who tell this, who share their stories, who, because I usually have entrepreneurs, authors, people that have something to share, and that's when it really hit me that this is what I want to do. Being able to share knowledge and being able to provide people an outlet so they can share their knowledge and their stories to help inspire others. It just felt right to me. So once it started feeling right, that's when everything started falling into place and numbers started really going up. And my guests really started like, at first it was like kind of hard for me to get guests because they're like, well, who are you? Like, yeah, you know, and like, and now it gets, I'm at the point where people send me messages like, hey, I want to be a guest on your show. I heard your show. And I'm like, oh, awesome, great. So slowly but surely, it's improving. My numbers are getting better. My downloads are going up. But it's just the key for me was just being consistent and finding my spot, finding where I fit in, and finding what I really truly enjoy doing.
Right, and I completely can understand as far as the beginning. So, this is my cell phone. I don't share it really. This is really my podcast started. I'm a college student. I don't have the luxury, and this we're in a pandemic, so it's not like we can really go out and test things out in person. So this is really all I had. Um, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I looked up apps because I know there's probably millions of apps. I just went with what seemed easiest. I went with Anchor, which is obviously the app I'm still currently using. So it's 10 o'clock at night. I And the irony is I had everything written down. I had everything written down to what I was gonna say. But when I hit record, none of that really came out. Probably one thing out of that whole little notepad that I wrote actually came out. It was like, for your experience, it was really me rambling because I'm not used to being projecting my voice in any format. So how on earth am I gonna do this? So for a good, I mean, eventually I got a flow into it and everything, but I can understand rambling for the first part of your season and hoping that it makes sense somehow, because that's exactly what it was for me.
Yeah, it was, my rants were just, it was like, listen, and I didn't feel right doing them. It just like, it was so much negativity out there already, and I felt that I was just adding to it. So when I switched it to be more positive and be more content oriented, where people was getting stuff from my podcast, not basically not getting upset listening to it, just basically some sharing, getting people to share their knowledge and share their stories. So when I did that, that's when it really, like I said, I truly really started loving it. Like, I enjoyed talking. I enjoyed the first few episodes talking and all that. But once, like I said, once I really got into doing the conversations and being my authentic self and being who I'm truly am when I talk to people, that was so much more fun, and I enjoyed it so much more that my wife was like, "Yo, listen, I know you're serious about this because you have been neglecting your PlayStation 4. You just She just sits there now collecting dust. I don't play anymore because I spend more time recording and building my podcast up. So I sacrificed some things to do this.
Or PlayStation. Oh,
I know, right?
I feel bad for your PlayStation because I love video games. I mean, we used to have a PlayStation here, but hey, like, it's in the way, and you get older. But I truly admire you, your story and the bits and pieces you shared and on a podcasting level as well. Because you think you have to have everything so sophisticated and high tech, but really you don't. And I think there's some authenticity, and at least for me, there's more heart to it because everything is so small. um, because it's those small steps that can lead, that can grow into much more of a bigger impact.
Yeah, no, but it's like for me, when I got furloughed, I was making there was of course everybody was talking about that extra money he was making, and instead of like spending that money on clothes or spending that money on stuff that I necessarily didn't need, I invested in myself. I knew this is something I love doing. I invested in proper equipment. I invested in tools that I needed to help me give my audience the best quality I can give them. Because to me, they're giving me something very precious, which is their time. By them listening to me, they're giving me something that they're never going to get back. And I want to give them the best content possible. So if that means that I have to invest in a little bit more in some equipment so my audio sounds better, or eventually when I go video, if I need to invest in a proper video camera so that my video looks good, then I will. But it's that's me. That's just me. That's how I. Not everyone has to do it that way.
Right.
This everyone has to find their way. That was just me personally. That's how I felt. So that's what I did. I invested in myself.
I do agree in investing into something you're passionate about. My father, who's been a really massive supporter in this, and really all the culmination of my skills have really produced this podcast, which is probably why I don't have any outside source or helps. Many podcast so-called promoters try to hit me up, and graphic designers, but I'm a digital art student, so that's majoring in graphic design. So there's that. I'm probably the most tech oriented person on the planet. I'm like the R2D of my household. So as far as technology and how to promote, I already got that covered. Um, so in regards to my dad, what I just said, he's been a really massive supporter of this. Just to give you a little insight, and I get this really insight into him. So it's somewhat, I mean, it's you know what? I'm just gonna go full throttle and share. 'Cause I was gonna say symbiotic, but it's not so much symbiotic with him. More so with me. I mentioned earlier that I'm not used to projecting my voice in any type of format, really. Um, and the reason I mentioned symbiotic really was because for the first 2 years of my life, I couldn't hear her talk. So that kind of came full circle to the fact that I'm using my voice in such a broader projecting like format than and louder than never before through my vulnerability. Um so that's a little history lesson for today. But back to my dad, he actually was a radio personality down here in Florida for this station called WRXB. I want to say it's still around. I'm not entirely sure, but he like is used to radio and microphone and sound check and all types of audio levels and structure and how to connect with people. He's really fluent in connecting with people on such a broad level. He's met like Usher, Destiny Child before Beyonce left, Ryan McKnight, LL Cool J, all those big cool people. Eventually, he did obviously leave that field to pursue something different. In that field he ended up pursuing, which, come to think of it, I guess in a way, this is more connection to him than I give it credit for. His field of study, well, his work field is actually in mental health, which is sort of ironic considering my podcast emphasizes mental health as well. that's somewhat coincidental, which I didn't plan on that. The fact that he works in the
Listen,
mental health field and
neither did I didn't plan my podcast being a mental health self help podcast. Not at all. It was just something I just wanted to do, and it wasn't until I was nominated by some fellow podcasters for an award
oh,
four awards, and then I realized that I was a self help mental health podcast. I didn't look at it that way. It's just me having some great conversations with some great people for them sharing and them sharing their stories. I didn't really think of it as that. I didn't really. So I had to go go back and just change some things. And once I realized that, yes, I am a mental health podcast, and I'm a big advocate for that. I believe some, especially like in the minority group, especially with men
yeah.
and minorities, it's a stigmatism that it's a weakness if you go out and seek help for mental for some of the issues you have as far as mental health goes. It's one of the things that we as black men and women, that it's like, oh, I can't believe you're going to see a shrink. I can't believe that. What is the problem? And it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be looked down because we're willing to look for help and willing to get away from the struggle of. And again, like I said, it's just, this is something for years in the black community that people look down at you like, oh, I can't believe you're going to a psychiatrist. What's your problem? And it's not. It shouldn't be that way. It should be, oh, you see a therapist. That's awesome. Great. Continue to do that. So so me and my nephew were working on changing like voicing our voices in support of mental health and in support of people who want to go seek therapy. And we encourage that. We talk about it all the time in my podcast and his podcast. If you need therapy, seek it. You really shouldn't be ashamed if you need the help.
I truly admire you for touching on that. And um, I didn't know how to categorize my podcast or that there was a category for it to fit into. But as far as categories go, and mental health, I guess, is something I've dealt with to a great deal from my own experiences. I know I know about rejection and having dark thoughts and your emotions running rampant or not talking to anyone and um, being defensive because you think everyone is criticizing you, but they're not. So um, I can understand your perspective in because of your topics and how that led to the choice you picked. So
It's like, and me, like, even with the issues that I've had and being in the dark place that I was, it was me going to therapy and being able to find someone I can talk to and express how I was feeling. And because I was angry for a long time. I was angry with the world. I was angry with God. I was just angry. And when I decided to really let go of the anger and really embrace God and embrace everything that had happened to me, because like they say, God won't give you anything you can't truly handle. And and this is like one of the first times I really do talk about God like this, because I'm not a religious person, but I'm very spiritual. I believe in a higher being. I believe we're here for a purpose. All this I do believe. And for me, just to be able to embrace him and understand why the things happened in my life. Like, we can, there's certain things you just can't control. it was just time for me to step out of the darkness and step back into the light and just get myself back, get my life back, get back to where I would be able to help people and not necessarily just not be in that place that I was. And me realizing now is the more I help people, I'm helping myself. I'm truly helping myself. The more I help other people.
I love your segue into by helping others, you're helping yourself. I think I like to think of um I think I like to think that way for myself personally sometimes because I truly do love helping others and um for the for I guess the course of my life I always try to figure out ways to help others with what I can do. Um okay, I can't drive, so how else can I help somebody? Oh, I didn't get my allowance this week, so how can I help somebody? And this podcast, in a way, is really a gift because it is something I can do to help someone. I have the technology, I have the gift, I have the empathetic nature, the sympathy, everything that I am created this podcast. So this is my own personal way of and access to helping others in a way I couldn't physically be able to do. So
No,
I'm
yeah,
losing my train
you're
of
right.
thought here, but
No, you're right. No, you're right. I had me and a friend of mine. We did a podcast together, and he is one of the hottest real estate agents in all of New York City. And he came on my show. We talked about manifestation, goal setting, just growth, and just everything that we were doing to be successful now. And I had another friend of a mutual friend of ours that we went to high school with her. After she heard our episode, she reached out to me and she was like, "Yo, I needed to hear that show. Just the fact that I knew you guys and I knew where you guys came from, you guys inspired me to." She had been on the fence to start a home business. So when she was like, "You guys inspired me to step out of my zone and start my business." And when she told me that like that made it so much more gratifying because I was able to help someone I knew who was undecided on whether or not she was gonna step out of her zone and start her business, so that when she listened to us and she realized like, yo, these are two guys that I grew up with that I know personally, and if they can do it, I can do it. So when she told me that, it just like it was like humbling. It was like, wow, this is what I do this for. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing because who knows who can hear, if it's just one person who hears me and I'm able to change the quality of their life. That's awesome. That's my goal is to touch as many people as possible.
absolutely. And I share the exact same vision as well. On a fun note, and not that this conversation hasn't been great, because I love talking about podcasting and our own personal stories of coming into podcasting. I do have that icebreaker question for you. I don't know if I'm be able to stump you, but many of my guests seem to enjoy this question and podcasters alike. So we shall see. If you could have any superpower that's not flying or teleporting, many people pick teleporting when I say they can't pick flying, but it's the exact same power. So if you could have any superpower that's not flying or teleporting, what would it be? And feel free to have some fun with it. Many people enjoy this question.
There's so many different ones. Oh man, what I would I don't know. I like would I want to read people's minds? Like, no, I don't know if I want to know what's going on in everybody's head. Super speed, maybe because I can get so much done faster. Oh man, yeah. Imagine if I had super speed, how fast I could edit my episodes. um, but invisibility would be a good one as well. Hmm, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think I'm gonna go with super speed.
Okay, super speed. I think it's
Yeah,
one of the few times I've heard someone use their power to help with podcasting. 'Cause-
that just shows you what's on my mind 24/7.
uh, that's the stories about this question. It's so awesome, but it's not too far from my answer when it comes to this question, so you'll get a chuckle out of it. Um, if I had a power, it's not exactly a power yet, but I feel like it would be one in the future, or it's already in the future. Who knows? Would be the power for this podcast to be heard across other galaxies that have yet to be discovered. So they're not even in NASA's radar yet, and they're
That's
listening
not
in
really
right
a
now.
superpower. That's more towards geared towards technology. Unless you would be like this super geeky technology person that can build these machines that would be able to send these signals millions and millions of miles away. Maybe
Oh,
then, yes. Maybe if
okay.
you was like a Tony Stark or someone.
Maybe. Well, I guess it would be technology based. I didn't think of it that way. Um, I thought it would be
Hey,
just
listen,
like
I am a comic book like growing up. I love reading comic books, so that's why. But yeah, I would lean towards that's more technology. But hey, Tony Stark is a superhero, and he didn't have superpowers. So
yes, maybe Tony Stark could send the message of this podcast to other galaxies. Although technically, I feel like his suit would burn up, so it'd have to be someone who can handle space, like Guardians of the
yeah,
Galaxy, which I'm a massive fan of. Also, we can keep talking about podcasting all day long. You would think my brain would have exploded from all the podcast episodes I've released. Consistency really is the key, believe it
it
or
is.
not. But we're at the end of this
Yeah, that's
awesome conversation.
people.
Yeah.
People think that I'm gonna release an episode and I'm gonna have 10,000 downloads instantly. Like, no, you got to be consistent. You have to build up your audience, and people will tune in if they like what you're putting out there. So it's and you're not like, I don't want to knock it out. Like, listen, if you want to start a podcast, go ahead, do it. I I I I, I want anybody to do anything they want. They set their minds to. But just know that you're not going to be able to monetize this instantly. It's not going to happen. It's going to take time. You got to build it up, people, or even if it's just a hobby, like, but you just want to put the best effort you can. So consistency is definitely key.
Absolutely. And you are not going to make $1 million when you release your first episode. That's just impossible. I've been at
Yeah,
this soon to be a year, just
you're
like
not getting that
you.
10,000 downloads yet. It's like, no, it's not
No.
happening instantly unless you have a big following on other social media and stuff like that. And then sometimes even that, it doesn't translate into podcasting because some people just probably don't listen to them. I don't know.
Right. Different dynamic than other stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you for joining me today. Well, do you have any social plugins where people can find your podcasts so it can be stuck in their minds?
Yes.
See the little
I'm on
pivot
all
right there.
major platforms. Yes. I'm on all major platforms. I'm on Apple, Google, Spotify, TuneIn. Anywhere there's podcasts, I'm on there. I'm on Pandora finally after such a
Yay!
long wait. I know it's like that was like the longest one. Like it took forever to get on Pandora. And I'm like, seriously, like why is it taking so long for me to get on Pandora? And everybody, like all my friends was getting like, hey, my episode's on Pandora. I'm like, oh man. But I'm finally on there, so you can find me on there. Um, you can find me on Instagram at wise_b_blunt. Same thing on Twitter. You can check out we're launching a radio station soon. You can check us out at realwiseradio.com. Uh, let's see. We launched a production company. You can check out our website at realwiseproductions.com. And we also have a Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Real Productions. Definitely check that out. That's about it, I think. I don't think we have anything else.
Well, thank you. Well, again, for talking about the world of podcasting and our personal journeys with it. It was truly inspiring, and I'm pretty sure it's going to resonate with every listener from Earth to planet Krypton or whatever it's called, in some form or another. So
I appreciate you having me on.
awesome.
We
To
have been
all,
been working
yeah.
on this for probably like over a month or so or something, like probably a little bit longer than that.
Uh, to all my listeners, stay healthy, stay safe. Special message to all the soldiers and veterans who have served our country today and on our Memorial Day. I truly, truly appreciate every single one of you for doing your duty to serve our country in some way, so we can live our life a bit easier without any sense of fear and be able to live it safely. So, thank you to all the brave men and women who have served our country in some way. And until next time, bye.
Bye.